Okay, so we're looking in our honey super right now, and you'll see as he pulls some of the frames out, they have wax, some of them don't. We actually checkerboarded our honey super, and that just means we have one drawn frame, so fully drawn of wax, and then one empty. One drawn, up, and there's your empty. So every other frame has drawn comb. And this is just to ensure that all of our wax gets drawn out straight. We do not use foundation, so this ensures that it's nice and straight. Some people will tell you to checkerboard brood areas. We do not recommend that ourselves at our apiary, because then the queen can get stuck on one frame and not be able to make her way across as easily, and we definitely don't want that here. We want her to walk freely among the brood, lay really well. So what we might do, even in our situation, is because some of our supers are deeps, like this one here, we may do the checkerboarding. Once we get that frame drawn out nicely, we'll actually move that to the bottom. So we have fully drawn comb, deep comb, that will just move to the bottom frame if we need an extra frame in there for her to lay in, so instead of checkerboarding.
What you're saying is if they pull this one out, but we have an empty frame in our brood chamber, we're going to move this one to the brood chamber, move the empty up here.
Yep.
Okay.
We don't want empties in our brood chamber, because then she can't lay on them. And it's harder for her to walk across an empty frame than it is a frame of comb.
And do you really want her walking on the walls to get over to the next frame?
I don't.
We talked about checkerboarding and how that's supposed to be done in the honey super, not in a brood chamber. So if you have a brood chamber that has empty frames, what you want to do is either take from the super, pulled out frames of course, and fill in your brood chamber. That gives your queen a chance to move around all the frames, and it gives her a chance to lay in every single cell that's down there. If there's a bunch of honey, they will uncap it and move it up, because how a hive typically is designed is they'll set up the brood chamber towards the top, and over time they'll move it down and start backfilling honey in that top. So when you see pictures, it'll be like honey in the top, brood chamber with all the babies in the bottom, and then they fly out. Well, in this case, we have honey super on top that's pulled out, but they're medium frames. We're not going to stick those in our deep super. So what we are going to do in the interim is we keep our brood nest together. So that's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4 frames here that are pulled out. It's all baby brood. There's a queen that's laying in here. Then what you want to see over time is they're going to pull these two out and these two out almost simultaneously, and what they'll fill with that is bee bread and nectar. So that will go to feeding the brood's nest. And then as they get to the outside frames, when they start pulling that out, they'll backfill, well, that's not really the right word, but they'll start filling these two frames with brood. So now your brood's nest will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 frames across, and that's going to be an excellent hive, because then it should be 2 frames on one side and 1 frame on the other side of resources, and that will be your bee bread and your nectar, and then your super on top will be honey. So, and then you just keep stacking supers, maybe with emery shims or whatever else you want to do. That's your beekeeper preference. But your brood box, if you're in a 10 frame, should look like that. If you're in an 8 frame, it should be brood nearly all the way across and spilling over into the second brood box, which should be on top as well. So that would be 16 frames of essentially bee bread resources and brood for an 8 frame box, and then you'd have supers on top of that.